Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. Bottom left hand corner, we have DignitasSjow starting as the red Terran. Upper right hand corner, after a little bit of computer freeze, we have WhiteRa. Maybe a little long on this one. On computer, there we go. WhiteRa starting as the blue protoss, and a lot of people are saying, hey, is that your processor? It's actually not my processor. I have a fantastic processor. It's some sort of access thing with my SSD, I believe, which my SSD, sometimes it just works perfectly the first time, other times it doesn't. For whatever reason, lately on the initial recording, it's been doing that half-second stall and then running perfectly smoothly from then on out. I almost wonder if it's a permissions issue in Windows 7. Actually, if just so you guys know, my limiting factor on recording these is my SSD. On my main hard drive, it stalls a lot, and it takes a while to transfer from my SSD to my main to do encoding if I'm doing additional commentaries, and that just slows the entire process down. So anyway, that is my limiting factor. I'm hoping if the price drops, I know it's been just stuck everywhere, talking tech all of a sudden, that it's been difficult to get them. Hybrid drives, I've not heard good things about. So yeah, just waiting for the price to drop or to get more money in someplace. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, yeah, I won't comment on that further. Anyway, this is NASL Division 2 Week 2 Game 2 between WhiteRa, aka WhiteRa as the blue protoss, and DignitasSjow red Terran. This is on Crossfire SC, which almost feels like a bit of a flip map. I think this has opportunities for Terran to win, but I feel like early game and then post kind of a single timing rush, which a lot of Terran execute. Let me bring up the production tabs. It's very easy for Protoss to run away from the match just because central field, you have all these nooks and crannies, which are very strong for sentry play. On top of that, you have a lot of high ground, low ground action, where Colossi can leap everywhere. The one critical point, early game sentries rule, so you can't really push out as a Terran, but unless you're going for some sort of crazy medevac drop or a Reaper push, something along those lines. But once you're past that point, siege tanks can do a little bit of hop action. Then it becomes a question of Colossi and positioning, as well as patience, I think, for Terran players. And there is a slight opportunity there, and that tends to be how most of these matches go. You'll see siege tanks fielded, you'll see Terrans testing the front, but I feel like most Protoss, especially at WhiteRa's level, are very well practiced at that stage of the map and tend to maintain map control with Colossi, and therefore get the third base up and running rapidly. And then Terran have dedicated more siege tank than medevac, and so on and so forth. And this is going to be a sneeze commentary. I hate that. Almost into it and didn't quite. Oh, it's painful. Nice little color there for you guys, let you know it was recorded live. Cybernetics core planted for WhiteRa. It looks like he's also as a gateway producing a zealot, probably going a little bit more economy based early. Sneeze still lingering. Natural expansion running up for DignitasSjow, going 1 racks into command center and still hasn't taken any gas. Actually, never mind, just as I say that, decides to grab his gas just to make sure I sound silly about a half second later. Beat you to it though, Sjow. Anyway, these guys are the kings of execution. Really, really strong. We saw game 1. I felt like WhiteRa got the best of Sjow, particularly in those army engagements. His unit attack selection was fantastic. Stalkers right on top of the siege tanks with blink over that cliffside edge. That was just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Bit of a supply cap here for WhiteRa, but I think it's because he's building a Nexus. See the 400 resources there. The Nexus goes up. Also, preventative bunker for Sjow. Just wants to make sure he's not getting pressed and forward. And kind of interesting here, a Zealot moving forward, and it looks like a Stalker as well, but no probe to follow this up. And usually you will see a probe on the front and maybe even some sentries staged up here just to stick into the Terran's face and make sure that Marine pushes do not advance too quickly. Usually this is kind of a critical point, actually, to delay that to delay that push. And actually I feel like there's a missed opportunity, WhiteRa testing that edge. If he had a pylon in here and was able to warp in Stalkers, he might be able to pick off that supply depot, because that bunker somewhat off the corner, but by the time he gets a pylon down there now and some Stalkers, he would have some difficulty picking off that supply depot and tempting those Marines out and getting some additional kills. Orbital command up and running. Second gas also up, and it looks like we do have a factory in production, maybe with the tech lab to follow. And really, actually thinking about game 1 and thinking about that early Raven build, I think that early Raven build would perhaps be successful in this map as well, and particularly because one option for Protoss is Blink Stalkers, or just heavy Stalker play in general, to kind of work against the underneath Marine army that provides the padding for the siege tanks. But with that point defense drone on this map, as well as kind of the positioning, it could end up being devastating. You usually do see a lot more Stalkers on this map just because the range and the opportunity to shoot over the cliffside edge and the later blink upgrade option. So we'll see actually what WhiteRa decides to build as far as his troop composition, and it actually might be a really important factor. 3 gateways as well as a robotics facility now in production, 2 gates also up. I think I'm not sure. Oh, okay, never mind. The Zealot is just sitting on that Zelnaga watchtower. Looks like that Stalker. Just keeping an eye out on the front. And again, I'm very surprised that we don't have 2 sentries up here, or at least more sentries here to the early game. 3rd gas now for Sjow, and it looks like he is tacking on a starport. Siege tanks and siege tech on their way. As well, several Marines being gathered up to the front. So it looks like it is going to be a very similar rush to Game 1. Well, not rush, a similar push to Game 1, where we're having a very Marine-heavy composition, siege tanks, and I'm almost wondering if we're going to have a medevac, Viking, or perhaps, well, I guess it's even possible to have Banshees, and Banshees spotting for those siege tanks could be very powerful as well. And I actually would be interested to see that in particular, but I'm almost thinking that he is in fact going to produce a Raven here. Robotics bay up. This feels a little bit slow and lag to me, and usually I'm not. This is where I have to admit I'm not a fantastic player. Around this supply count I tend to get a little bit more iffy as far as timing and when things should be, but this robotics bay feels just a little bit sluggish for some reason, and that could be a significant factor, not having that first Colossi out in the field on time. First sieging out, we do see a tech lab. So now the question is Banshee or Raven? We will see momentarily. Looks like a Raven being produced. So again, yeah, it is a repeat of that first build. 2 siege tanks already out in the front, a formidable count of Marines. And it looks like that robotics facility initially producing an observer. We will see a Colossi shortly afterwards. And interesting selections of more Zealot heavy for Duckload Raw. Interesting. So really not a lot of Stalkers to his name at this stage, just 3. Perhaps he'll fill in more Stalker counts to follow. And I almost wonder if he's going to try to stage the Zealots around for a flank or something like that. Maybe he's just hoping that these units will be pinned against a force field so he can stage the Zealots forward and do a lot of critical crushing damage. Actually not really taking a peek at that front and seeing the 3 siege tanks or those Marines. With that observer, actually kind of looking at it, you can see just peeks the Raven. He's going to see that starport. It looks like a Banshee following this up, so it looks like we will see some Banshee action. Also, barracks, a lot of additional barracks to follow this up for Sjow. He is getting a reactor and a tech lab to work with those upgrades, but they will not be there for this initial fight. Stalkers being pushed back now. Keep in mind, there's also a pylon to keep an eye on this bottom right-hand base, just in case there is an additional expansion. Looks like WhiteRa thinking about expanding. Doesn't have quite the resources to do it, and he's somewhat out of single Marine there to stage forward, and I don't see the Colossi. Okay, never mind. There's the Colossi coming up. Siege tanks on the low ground to push that back. Let's see if the Marines take the forward position. Again, keep in mind this is not a heavy Stalker count, but the Colossi moving down at a vulnerable position. Guardian shield up. Raven actually dropping an auto turret, and oh my goodness, the Colossi taken out so rapidly. And this army actually melted as well. It looked like it wasn't even engaging those Marines. So 3 siege tanks, actually a third one joining, one and another several highly damaged. And that was a critical, really a keystone for WhiteRa to hold. And now he's in a lot of trouble. Not enough energy on that Raven to be useful to follow this up, but it looks like 7 Marines taking control of this natural expansion. SCV's off the line, building bunkers as well as repairing those siege tanks. Another Colossi that needs to be babysat desperately on the front. He can range these bunkers. Interesting auto turret, but these siege tanks can do short work, and it looks like they are going to refocus on that Colossi. Colossi now being backed up by WhiteRa. He moved in those 2 Stalkers, was able to take out a siege tank there, and this is a critical engagement. Zealots being crushed on the low ground, having a lot of difficulty pushing forward, and this is WhiteRa needs to hurry up. The bunker's up, plenty of Marines to fill in. Oh my goodness, this is a dangerous situation. Those bunkers providing plenty of support to allow those siege tanks to do their job, just crush everything. In the meantime, it looks like more troops flooding forward. Siege tanks, everything to support, and WhiteRa is in desperate trouble. Colossi with just a sliver of health, just 13, and siege tank, survives. The Zealots right on top of it. Now 3 o'clock base. Oh, this is devastating. 3 o'clock base up and running, goal expansion. Probes trying to flee, but they are eating, oh my goodness, tank shells all the way through. Only 4 probes make it out. Oh, this hurts. His economy plummeting down to 32 harvesters. Sjow has a huge and significant economic lead, but looks like some Stalkers have been warped into the bottom right-hand corner underneath Show's defenses. Let's see if he's going to be able to loop around and a warp prism in production. Perhaps wanting to get, and that'll be the solution to the forward pylon problem, leaving a Colossi to defend, actually lifting up another Colossi. Wow, this is very risky from WhiteRa. He really can't defend his main. A lot of this is very dangerous actually for Sjow as well, but in a base trade situation, it does tend to favor Terrans. But maybe we'll see something interesting from WhiteRa to really cover this up, and if he can just crush the SCV line and then somehow get rid of this contain, maybe he can accomplish something. But now the Stalker's up in the front, nothing to defend. It looks like troops just in, okay, it looks like they are in attack move now. For a second there, it looks like they were just pushing up the reinforcement. Colossi dropping, just emptying that SCV count. Marauders on the high ground now taking care of that. Supply depot raised. It's not going to last very long. I see some Marines coming, but that looks like it's it. Just the Marines coming up to support that. Colossi should do very well as well as the Stalker force. And the Stalkers, actually, I don't think they should focus on... Oh, never mind. They're focusing on that tech lab to try to keep that siege tank from coming out. SCVs coming off the line. Looks like that tech lab will burn, but not in time before that siege tank is out. SCVs making short work of these. With the support of the Marauders, making short work of the SCVs, but the Colossi up on the high ridge. Zealots warping in from that warp prism. Oh, and those Stalkers being annihilated now by that siege tank. They're just weakened up enough by those SCVs. Warp prism still has that Colossi in it. Looping back around. Marines now coming in to support. Not a lot of health left on that Colossi. He has to be very careful with it. Warp prism isn't going to be able to... Oh, no! The warp prism gets taken out as well. Oh, and I think that was it for WhiteRa. Let's see how much economic damage he did. Wow, actually significant. Dropped Sjow to 20 harvesters. Unfortunately, though, we have a planetary fortress upgrading to 3 o'clock. Mules dropping on the gold expansion. That should definitely help Show's economy out. And WhiteRa doesn't have all that much of an economy base himself. 5 gateways, 3 Colossi. He has opened up that Disruptor Rock, so he can move to this upper left-hand corner, maybe swing around, but he needs to be extremely careful. Oh, and that Raven makes it really hard to scout as well. And this Viking actually might be able to peek forward and kind of look, and this is very risky from WhiteRa. Huge risks, because he's nothing to defend his main right now. If there's an attack from Sjow, he's going to end up losing, because just going to be completely out of position to provide any semblance of a defense. More Stalkers warping in, so WhiteRa looking for another distractionary attack perhaps, and just bringing the troops around to the main is oh, it's gonna get caught. Nice scouting by Sjow. Oh, and that army crushed almost instantaneously. Overwhelming troops. Really well played by Sjow. Again, fantastic execution. These guys, it's the fist fight of the executors. The executors. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, check out NASL.TV. Great website, and they are basically streaming games every single day, which I hope it's not creating, I think it is, creating a bit of viewer fatigue, but thanks for all the support in this heavy StarCraft 2 time, when there's StarCraft everywhere. Really appreciate your viewership. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. Thanks for listening.